Very much like weight loss.
Yeah.
I see the parallels kind of with the bodybuilding
Similar,
and the weight, in the sense of like when you're 50 pounds overweight, it is damn hard to get started working out because you haven't been doing it. You've been, just overeating and not exercising. And so the momentum to get started is so difficult. In fact, your body's fighting against you. You're more estrogenic because you have all this extra body fat. Your metabolism's down, right? So it's just tough. What's the worst thing that can happen to you if you stop smoking weed? And that's really what we're going to talk about now, which is you may face anxiety. You're going to be irritable. You're going to have shitty sleep for a couple of weeks. Like,
not to mention, you've said this really well. Just because you stop smoking weed doesn't mean your life's going to immediately get better. There's probably a lot of things that you have been neglecting.
Yes.
And now you actually have to raise your awareness to see what are all those things that I've been putting off.
Fix them.
And actually fix them from the fucking get. Otherwise, weed is going to be right back in your life immediately because you don't know any other way to deal with anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the number one key right there. It's like weed by itself is not going to fix anything, but it is the starting point for, like you said, if you don't see clearly 2 weeks, 4 weeks after stopping, like, oh my God, I'm actually a different person right now. I'm not even who I am when I'm high. Because this is an interesting thing I've concluded. We all have little personality voices, right? Some people have like multiple personality disorder, but all of us have different moods that we get into. But when you're high, you're oscillating between all those personalities so fast sometimes. It becomes like it's your own entertainment show. And then when you stop getting high, you're like, who the fuck am I really? What do I act like? I don't know if I'm happy. And then people's default states are usually like some boring, like numb, like anxious, or they're just down and negative about everything. But when they're high, they can go from like that state to, oh, I'm so up. I feel so great right now. And then they'll go into a different mood and a different mood. So you get to experience all these different variety of emotions when you're high. And then when you're not high, you're like, man, I just feel dull. And this is in the early phases of when you get off of weed. You feel like, oh, I just feel like life doesn't have any juice anymore. Everything feels boring to me. All I know is to get high to feel anything.
Yeah, it's very
I don't know how to eat anymore. I don't know how to go to bed without getting high. You feel like, who the fuck am I right now? If that happens to you, that's a good sign.
It can really mess you up. And I think almost, and I know you can edit this later, but we almost need to say in the beginning, this is not an anti-weed podcast.
No.
Like, we're going to talk about smoking.
We're probably going to get high today.
Probably.
Fuck you.
And we very well may. But I think you got to go through the whole journey to talk about it. So I don't want people to think that like these guys are anti-weed.
No,
it's like,
not at
I'm
all.
actually not anti-weed at all. I'm actually saying I'm pro me. I'm pro you. I'm pro your spirit being strong enough, stable enough, having a good enough base, a foundation that you can enjoy all things of life, food, working out, sex, weed, whatever, and not have it turn into something that consumes you.
Yes.
But you kind of have to understand the nature of weed because it's so subtle. I have to say, it's, to me, what makes it so dangerous, if you want to call it, or so debilitating, is that it's so slow and it's so subtle. We were looking at like all these different cool designs, and they had carved woods and they had like petrified wood. And she asked the lady, what makes it petrified? She said, well, it's crazy because there's wood at the bottom of the lake, and slowly the minerals replace the molecules in the wood, mineral by mineral, until literally the piece of wood still looks like a wood, but it's a rock now. And I kind of feel like weed does that to people. It literally can come in and just little molecule by molecule, day by day, week by week, it starts replacing, so to speak, little cells in you, your identity in yourself. Till one day you're the petrified wood. You're literally petrified. You're on the couch.
Am I? No, that's such a good way
doing
to put
shit. And you're not alive. You're not a living tree anymore. You're not growing. You stop growing. It's been replaced, So I think getting to a place where you realize, shit, I may have a problem, because when anyone hearing this talking about stopping gives me anxiety or gives me pause. And then you break it down to, how do you get off it? And in my mind, there's two ways. Number one, you either have a groundbreaking experience that just blasts you out of the water, like Inner Engineering or maybe at Muji, or someone to where you get a glimpse of what life could be like without weed, and how high you can actually be on your own supply, and then that helps you get off of it. Or sometimes in life, for different people, you got to just dig your way out of the trench. You got to crawl your way out of the hole. And I think that's where you start talking there.
And mentally, like one of the strategies that I found is like, you use the law of averages from wherever you are. If you're smoking 6 times a day, try to go to fucking 4. Try to go to 3. go slowly down, because psychologically, if you're not ready to do cold turkey, get down to less and less. So in the month time, you're spending more days without weed than with weed. So if you're going 15 days of the month high, you're not, on average, you're getting high too much. You need to cut that number down. So if you can go down to like, I'm only getting high 4 times a month, that's great progress. The next month you can be like, let's see if I can go down to only 3 times in the whole month. Ideally, we've talked about this. Weed, you said it yourself, is best used infrequent.
Yeah, just if you guys think about, if you guys smoking out there, everyone's taking a tolerance break because you realize you can smoke like 10 blunts and you're not getting anywhere. Yeah. So that tells you, and most people, it takes a couple weeks, 2 to 4 weeks. I mean, science will tell you for it to get out of your system. So if you're smoking once every 2 weeks or so, you're getting the best bang for your buck. You're hardly spending 100%. Anything. You're getting some of the highest high that you can get out of it. You're getting that initial phase, which is the best phase of weed, where you smoke it once or twice.
And you're just like,
and it doesn't have much deleterious effects because you're sleeping well and you haven't get into that habit.
Which is why I say it's a non-specific consciousness enhancer. If you are fucked and you're not in balance at all, it will throw you around the washing machine. Like you'll just be going for cycles of just shit. But if you've eaten well, you're taking care of your health, you're working out, your sleep is fine, you've taken care of all of your like work responsibilities, your home responsibilities, you get high, you're not going to be fucking anxious. You're not going to be in a different place.
You haven't done it all day, every day.
Right. And it's a different experience then. So it's like in balance and moderation, it's one of the greatest plants to exist, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a little medicine, but I think...
But medicine can't be used every day unless you're fucking sick, and that's the real message.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
You fucking abuse medicine, you're an addict, all right? Medicine is supposed to be a small... Like, you go to the doctor, he gives you medicine, it's not
for
permanent.
A week or two.
Like, take the shit and stop, right? Yeah. People are, but it's medicine. Yeah, well, what the fuck? Are you sick? Like, why do you need this all the time? That's the key right there. I love that.
I wonder if you would... Because we have different personalities, very much so.
I think we have similar traits.
We have similar traits, but I mean in the sense of like how we think about things, because I think getting off weed is very personality specific. Because there's some people, like I know I'm the type to go the cold turkey, like fuck it, throw everything in the trash and take on a hardcore challenge, and you know what I mean? But then there are other people that I think shouldn't do that and need to, moderate the amount or moderate the frequency, you know what I mean? And they can use whatever metric they want. Maybe you only buy an eighth or something and you only one a month or whatever it is. And you're like, I don't buy another one. Because you got to also think about your finances and how that...
Finances play a big role. And I think for me, I've been trying to come up with strategies that would help the most amount of people. Because I think one of the hardest thoughts for many people is, I can't think about never smoking weed again. Well, you don't have to think about that long term. You just need to come up with a plan to spend enough time off of it so you can gain your clear, conscious self back, where you're not driven by the weed anymore.
You're not compulsive anymore.
Right. You got to get over that compulsiveness. Yeah. That phase is going to require you to stop for some period of time.
You want to consciously smoke it. Yeah. So we kind of need to give some actionable items, I think too. So. Like actionable item number 1 is, how do you feel when we say, we dare you to stop smoking for 90 days? How does that make you feel? And if you actually had to do that this second, like go to wherever you're keeping your shit and toss it all in the trash or give it to a friend or whatever.
What would that create?
What does that, how does that feel like? That's step number 1. And that's your first little check, like do a test, Then if you get to that point and say, shit, you realize I do want to attempt to smoke less. Yeah. Then you got to figure out, yourself hopefully well enough to know what your personality is like to see, what should you do? Yeah. Should you go cold turkey or should you try to slowly wean yourself off of it? But I also think problems with weaning yourself off of it, like my philosophy behind it is, and it may not be everyone's, but is that to wean myself off of it, because I already need a tolerance break, smoking less and less is, I'm not even going to feel the benefit. Yeah. And it's just putting off. If I just go hard at it for 2 weeks, as we know, after the first 2 weeks is the roughest time period, the first 2 weeks when you've been smoking regularly, up to 30 days, but definitely the first 2 weeks, let's just get it out of the way. Otherwise, I'm going to take 6 months getting down to 0. Yeah. And as I come down to 0, I'm going to be smoking and not getting the benefit that I got before, because I'm using less and less THC.
And I only use that analogy because once you start to see that, okay, I'm able to smoke only once a day. So why the fuck can't I go a whole day? If I haven't smoked for 23 hours and I smoked in the last hour of my night before bed, why couldn't I have just completed the 24 hours and see how I am the next day? And that gets people encouraged enough to be like, yeah, that makes sense. Why? Okay, let me just go a day without it. Now that you've gone a day without it, why can't you go another day without it? Now you start to see like, okay, you're building momentum. So it's kind of like just it's a negotiation tactic.
It's very much like weight loss.
Yeah.
I see the parallels kind of with the bodybuilding and the weight, in the sense of like when you're 50 pounds overweight, it is damn hard to get started working out because you haven't been doing it. You've been, just overeating and not exercising. And so the momentum to get started is so difficult. In fact, your body's fighting against you. You're more estrogenic because you have all this extra body fat. Your metabolism's down, right? So it's just tough